Hey guys, welcome back to ProductNation, and in this video, we're comparing the Mi Note 10 Lite to the Mi Note 10. So let's get started and see which phone may be better. So let's get started. The unboxing experience is very similar to that of the Mi Note 10. Even the box is almost exactly the same except for that Lite logo right there at the bottom. The version that we got was the Midnight Black 6GB RAM, 64GB ROM storage. Getting into the box, the phone looks very sleek, but more on that later. You also get this semi-clear case, USB Type-C, and the 30-watt fast charging brick. Now it says Qualcomm Snapdragon 730G processor, but let's peel that in and set up the phone along with the fingerprint and everything and get right into the phone. Now, what we're going to be doing in this video is basically a camera comparison and the usability comparison between the Mi Note 10 and the Mi Note 10 Lite. So a lot of the features are going to be rolling off of the Mi Note 10 video. Check that out earlier. First focus is going to be on the camera. The camera module comprises of an 8-megapixel ultra-wide-angle lens. The second one is a 5-megapixel depth sensor. The third is a 64-megapixel main shooter. And the last one is a 2-megapixel macro lens. Now these are great and standard lenses coming with the Mi Note 10 Lite. It has a 5260 mAh battery that is same as that of the Mi Note 10, and also the display is exactly the same as the Mi Note 10 with a 6.47-inch AMOLED 3D curved display. Now, holding it in your hand, it feels identical, almost no difference to the Mi Note 10. And in your hand, the phone does feel pretty premium, same as the Mi Note 10, and it's quite pleasant to hold and interact with. So the Mi Note 10 had 5 cameras right there at the back, and then the front-facing 1 camera there at the top. The Mi Note 10 Lite has 4 cameras at the back and a forward-facing camera right there in the front. Something that's really great about the Mi Note 10 Lite is that they've moved the ultra-wide-angle lens all the way to the top of the phone, so whenever you're shooting through it, your hand doesn't accidentally block it or cover half of the screen when you're taking an ultra-wide-angle picture, which is something that happened a lot on my Mi Note 10. Let me show you what I mean. So if I click on the camera on the Mi Note 10 and switch over to the ultra-wide-angle lens, you can see my fingers blocking majority of the screen there. But if I turn the phone around to show you where my finger was placed, it's not even, you see that? You see that gap? It's not even really there, and this is how you'd normally hold the phone. And it's still covering 1/4 of the screen right there. It would always interrupt my screenplay whenever I'm using the ultra-wide-angle lens. However, on the Mi Note 10 Lite, switch over to the ultra-wide-angle lens, nothing being blocked. I'm holding the phone the exact same way. Because the ultra-wide-angle lens has been switched all the way to the top, you're not going to be blocking anything with your finger. Even if I place it like right up there, I'm not going to be blocking anything because the ultra-wide-angle is all the way there at the top, as you guys can see clearly. So it's really great that they thought about that and changed that design flaw from the Mi Note 10 over to the Mi Note 10 Lite. Really happy about that. So let's get started with the image comparison. Both these pictures are taken using both phones with no filters added, completely unedited. And the first image is an HDR image test where I put the HDR on auto and took a picture with both. The Lite seems slightly faker looking than the regular. Here you can see the blur is better on the Mi Note 10 rather than the Lite, and it seems like the blurriness comes from the aperture, and also as in this image you can see the Lite slightly crushes the blacks more. Moving on to an ultra-wide-angle image, same difference here. The blacks are more crushed on the Lite version and the Mi Note 10 looks more balanced. Moving on to a macro shot, here the performance is quite similar. The image produced is almost exactly the same between the both phones. Moving on to the zoom capabilities, this is the ultra-wide-angle lens. The Lite looks slightly fake here. Moving on to the 1x zoom, they look quite similar in this situation, except the blacks are more crushed on the Lite. Then you've got the 2x zoom, you've got the 5x zoom where the Lite is struggling a little bit now because it doesn't have that zoom. 10x zoom, the Mi Note 10 is doing great, but the Mi Note 10 Lite has to be cropped in. And then 50x zoom, obviously, Mi Note 10 is chill in there, while the Mi Note 10 Lite is really struggling with the digital. With the front camera, however, it's a different story. The Mi Note 10 kind of struggles with the HDR. The left side of my face is completely blown out, while the Lite looks absolutely great. Even in this second image, you can clearly see the balance is a lot better on the Mi Note 10 Lite, and the colors are more true to life. Moving on to a nighttime shot, you guys can clearly see that the Mi Note 10 does a lot better, and the blacks are not as crushed as in the Mi Note 10 Lite, even in the night mode, because of that bigger aperture size, and it just performs a lot better in night mode because of that bigger aperture. Especially when you move on to the ultra-wide-angle lens, you can clearly see both of them aren't great, but the Mi Note 10 Lite struggles a lot more. Now looking at the video comparison, both these phones look almost exactly the same until you get up close to a subject. Now for some reason, I realized that the Mi Note 10 kept missing focus at 1080p. Even at 4K, there was a slight hunt for focus, while the Lite was consistent with its focusing. As you can see, the overall image colors look better in the Mi Note 10, but the Mi Note 10 Lite managed to capture focus a lot better. Alright, so this is recording with 4K. It seems to be a lot more stable than I remember with the Mi Note 10, but we're going to test that out in a minute here. I'm just going to move around a little bit, get a full 360 of this. I mean, it's not the steadiest thing. Maybe I'm just holding it steady. I don't feel like there's stabilization, but it seems smoother than usual. Like I can sense a little bit of smoothing there. Alright, so now we're recording 4K 30 FPS with the Mi Note 10, and the stabilization does seem pretty decent. I don't remember there being stabilization in the 4K mode, but yeah, there is stabilization. However, the focusing is a bit iffy on the Mi Note 10. It just keeps missing focus every now and then, but the stabilization wise looks very similar to the Mi Note 10 Lite. Let's do a full 360 again. Just like that. So it's pretty similar, honestly. I don't see that much difference here. Okay, now we're recording the video coming out straight from the front camera. Both of these are recording at 1080p 30 FPS. As you guys can see, the stabilization isn't really there. It's pretty shaky if I move around. And looking at the image directly right on the camera here itself, it does seem like the Mi Note 10, which is the phone on the right here, is slightly wider than that of the Lite. So definitely the Lite is slightly more cropped in than the Mi Note 10. I'm gonna move around for some HDR so you can see the rendition and the colors as well. But it does seem like the Mi Note 10 Lite is slightly more cropped in than the Mi Note 10. Also, looking at the sharpness, it does seem like the Mi Note 10 over sharpens a little bit. I've talked about this multiple times in the past when we did the iPhone 11 Pro Max comparison and the S20 Ultra comparison with the Mi Note 10. It does seem to be over sharpened a little bit, and I can see that here as well, even with the Mi Note 10 Lite. So looking at the colors, they're slightly paler than usual, but that's okay. Okay, in this situation, standing right here, the HDR on the Mi Note 10 Lite looks a lot better. Clearly, as you guys can see there, my face is completely properly exposed on the Mi Note 10 Lite, but on the Mi Note 10, it's blown out on the left side of my face, and the clouds are slightly blown out as well. Definitely the HDR looks better on the Lite version. Especially look at that shot. That is interesting. So let's just jump into the gaming performance on the Mi Note 10 Lite, because a lot of you wanted to know that. The performance is exactly the same as that on the Mi Note 10, because the processor being used on both of these phones is the Snapdragon 730G, and there's absolutely no lag or delay when playing games like Call of Duty, PUBG, or Fortnite. The performance on both these phones is exactly the same, with the UI and usability being identical to one another. Even the inputs and the outputs are exactly the same on both phones, and usability wise, you won't even see a difference. Now, which phone of these should you be buying? If you're looking for a camera phone that has the better camera with 108 megapixels to work with, then the Mi Note 10 is definitely the option to go with. We've made a full video on this, check it out. But if you're not that into the cameras, then definitely the Mi Note 10 Lite is going to be the option for you, because it gives you the same exact performance as the Mi Note 10, but on a tighter, lighter budget. And also the body looks a lot sleeker with no protruding design for the camera module. It just looks a lot more premium and nicer to me. And you're definitely not going wrong with buying the Mi Note 10 Lite.